Hello, this is Matt Singer. I'm the arts and culture editor at Willamette Week, and my guest today is Matt Bors. He is a nationally acclaimed, Pulitzer-nominated, Portland-based cartoonist, or at least Portland-based for the moment. Matt, thank you so much for talking today.
Yeah, thanks, man.
So you are moving to Canada, as I understand it. Can you kind of explain why?
Yeah, I'm moving to small town in Ontario with my wife and two kids, basically because she's from there. She's a Canadian. It's her hometown, and mainly to get childcare help from her parents through this pandemic. Because I'm realizing this thing's going on longer than, and it's worse than anyone maybe thought initially. And if you talk to anybody with kids, especially we got young kids like a newborn and a toddler, and daycare's been closed since March, and I mean it's just impossible to work and do this. Fall feels like it's going to be a disaster, even if when they reopen schools. I mean, we're probably going to see shutdowns again. We might be seeing shutdowns and going back and forth between lockdown statuses and stuff well into next year. So anyway, we're just sort of getting financially depleted and emotionally depleted from like trying to manage this. And I guess fortunately for us, we have this kind of easy answer sitting there. I mean, she's kind of, my wife has favored moving to Canada for a while, and I never wanted to leave Portland, and I don't really want to leave the US, but it's going to save us a ton of money. We're going to have relatives helping out. It's just, like a lot of people right now are just home alone with kids all the time. It's impossible to do both at the same time for a prolonged period.
You mentioned that you were resistant to this move, even though it seems like the idea was out there in your household pre-pandemic. But what was there? Was there like a particular moment that made you just kind of give in and realize that this was, the smartest thing that you could do for yourself?
Yeah, well, it wasn't a particular moment, but everyone I know with kids is basically like having an ongoing mental health crisis, and it's just like crushing, and our, with small kids especially, because it's like, I'm sure it's hard with like a teenager too, they would just like do their own thing and you couldn't convince them to quarantine or something. But like with little kids, you can't, like, you have to be engaged with them, take care of them constantly. It's just super hard. I mean, that and the finances just sort of convinced me. I mean, I mentioned my wife's in school, so I'm the sole income provider, and I'm not exactly wealthy. So we've been paying for childcare for our kids so I can work full time and she can be in full-time school. And it's a lot of money. And that was already pretty draining on us. And it's like, now, I mean, what are you supposed to do? Hire a part-time or full-time nanny? I mean, it's really expensive. And we were going to maybe try to do that through the end of the year, but we basically would have gone broke. And then, I'm not even sure that next year still isn't going to be going on. So
you mentioned, you're the kind of the sole income earner in the house right now. How did the pandemic affect your work financially? Did you take a hit specifically because of the pandemic?
No, fortunately, knock on wood so far. So, I mean, a little bit. I can explain real quick. So I run the Nib, which is a publication for comics, and that's been doing pretty good. It's entirely member funded. So we haven't really seen a big dip in revenue, but I did lose a few clients. So your crosstown rival, the Portland Mercury, ran my work for like 10 years. They stopped their print edition. I'm not running in there anymore, getting paid for that. And I also was laid off last year. The company that was funding the Nib employed me and all my editors that work with me. And so I took a pay cut there. So it was like, me paying for everything to get my wife through school and put our kids into daycare made a lot more sense when I had a better job, and things got a little tighter last year when I got laid off, and then now with the pandemic, it's just like it really hitting us.
Mm. Given I think what people perceive your politics to be, they would think that moving to Canada is like the dream. I know you talked a little bit about this with OPB, but why is it not? I guess
Well,
for you.
a lot of people I talk to are just like, "Oh, can you take me with me?" Or I'd love that. I mean, I think it's definitely like it's a good position to be in. Like this is going to save us money. I mean, I'm looking more and more at the positives. Like just going to a small town, like we're going to be able to afford a bigger place, all this good stuff. But I just sort of don't like the like flee the country because things are bad like mentality. Like a lot of people throw that out there all the time. Like I remember back in the Bush years. Um, I think it's a little different when your wife is Canadian and has family there, and she's urging you to go. But I guess I mean, I love the United States. It's my country. Like, it's not. It's got a lot of problems. It also has a lot of great cities, a lot of great culture, a lot of great history. And I'm attached to it because I've always lived here. So there's part of me that just doesn't like that. And it's just like at a practical level. I mean, I've lived in Portland for 14 years and have a ton of friends here and have roots here. So I'm just not looking forward to leaving that. That's the hardest part.
Do you have a sense of how this move might affect your work? Given that the leaning of your comics are about critiquing those problems in the United States. Do you sense that you could function the same being in a different country?
Yeah, I imagine that my work is going to be the same. I mean, maybe if I end up spending my whole life in Canada, I'll get a little more into their politics and everything. But I've been up there before because I've been with my wife 10 years and everything, and it's obviously very similar culture, and they 80% of their news and entertainment consumption at least is American. So it's not that different, and they're, by virtue of being a relatively low populated country that only borders us, like they're just overrun with, they know what's going on here more than we know what's going on there. I'll say that. I mean, I don't know a ton about what's going on in Canada, frankly.